Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Individual freedoms are always the answer. So, Paris attack, stabbing near Charlie Hebdo office, an act of terror. So, just by, as we had before, where they decided to portray an image of Muhammad, and then you've got some radical Islamists say, well, hey, in the Quran it says that you cannot portray a picture of Muhammad, in which case we're going to come and shoot you, as they did at the time. Now the court case is ongoing. Yes, it's a several-year-long trial, even though you would think it's pretty cut and dry. But that is how the checks and balances are supposed to work in a civilized society, that you want to make absolutely sure, beyond reasonable doubt, that the people responsible are actually guilty. And it's an investigation in order to find out everybody who is pertinent to the crime in question, in order to ensure that justice is served. And this does take several years. It is not a vigilante lynch mob, of which says, I think this person did something wrong, therefore let's kill them. But instead, it is an investigation that takes years. That is obviously a negative of democracy, that doing the right thing can take a long time to achieve. But, of course, the upside of it is that doing the wrong thing will take a long time to achieve. And you would hope, and it is reasonably successful most of the time, that the horrific things are then caught out within the first few months or even the first couple of years before they have time to take effect. So, yeah, it hinders the good things, but it does also hinder the bad things. So the reason that I mentioned that individual freedoms are where they should lie is, at the risk of going into the vigilante justice territory, is down to self-defense. Because it's keeping that boundary by saying, yes, you might need an investigation that lasts several years, but you are still enabling people to defend themselves within the moment. Thankfully, this attack simply wounded two people, seriously injured, but they have not died. And it doesn't seem like they will die, as they're in a critical condition and seem to be pulling through. So thankfully, nobody will have died from that. But you would also think that why would they have to be in that situation in the first place? If they are armed, then of course you level the playing fields. Let's say you have Islamist terrorists who go, well, hey, we can get knives quite easily, so we're going to plan our attacks, we're going to plan our routes, we're going to train with knives for months at a time until we think that we're actually fully capable of taking out these individuals. As groups of people with a machete, or a machete-like weapon, as they describe it here. A machete-type weapon, the police said. Whereas the public, of course, how many people do you know that have trained meticulously in order to disarm a knife man? No, rarely any, if at all. However, of course, if you've got people who appreciate something equivalent to the Second Amendment, then of course they're going to enjoy using their gun, in which case they're going to actually use it and train with it. But also it's going to level the playing fields. It's the old saying of, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. It's very much that simple. And so, of course, if you do have it permitted for citizens of the country to keep and bear arms, and not for tourists or immigrants or foreigners, foreign threats, if you will, then the Islamists will still find it difficult to find a gun and therefore more likely go for the knives, in which case the good guy with the gun will stop the bad guy with a knife. Yes, there is, of course, still the chance that because guns are in circulation, the Islamists, the terrorists, will have access to those weapons, to the guns, to the firearms. But again, you'll have people who find it far easier to defend themselves. Instead of doing a one-on-one melee combat, you can have a 12 to 1 because of firearms. It really is that straightforward. So what happened here? Well, a stabbing in Paris that left two people seriously injured is being treated as a terror attack, the French Interior Minister has said. Gilles Darmanin said the attack near the former office of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo was clearly an act of Islamist terrorism. An 18-year-old man of Pakistani origin, described as the main suspect, was arrested near the scene. But that's not the only one. 6 other people are in custody and are being questioned, police said. Yes, it took quite a bit of planning to not kill anyone. Not trying to be a race realist here, but it makes you wonder. The victims, a man and a woman who worked at a TV production company, were seriously injured by a machete-type weapon, so a blade. Police said Prime Minister Jean Castex told reporters at the scene near the Boulevard Charleroi that their lives were not in danger. French words, it's like ordering a croissant. You can do the regular thing, and then you get to that, and it's like, I'll have a coffee and a croissant. So you've been practicing your French accent, and as the old joke goes, I really hope that they do a similar thing in France or in Paris. They say, oui, je veux un café et une pasty. Merci beaucoup. you really hope. But English is just the language that takes other languages up alleyways, beats them up, and then takes their valuables. So, the attack came as a high-profile trial was underway of 14 people accused of helping 2 jihadists carry out the 2015 attack on Charlie Hebdo, in which 12 people were killed. The magazine has since moved to a secret location. So, the officials say that it's the street where Charlie Hebdo used to be. This is where the Islamist terrorists operate, from the Interior Minister. Yes, the Islamist terrorists, you are actually acknowledging them by name. Good job. And he's ordered security to be stepped up around synagogues this weekend for Yom Kippur, their peaceful weekend, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. The main suspect has not been named, but Monsieur Damanin, said he arrived in the country 3 years ago as an isolated minor of Pakistani nationality. No passports, though, because they destroy them, otherwise they're sent back. The minister added that the suspect was not known for being radicalized, but had a previous arrest for carrying a screwdriver. Which surely brings up 2 points. One is, you're not aware they're radicalized, in which case it's pretty bloody useless. And they've all already been arrested for a stupid thing of carrying a screwdriver, in which case those laws don't seem to be helping out anything either. So, you failed twice. Good job. So, the attack unfolded as, just without really knowing why it had happened, 2 people were then injured from the blade. But they do go on to say, quite importantly, that some hours later, 5 other men, said to be of Pakistani origin, were detained in the northeastern suburb of Pantin during a search of a building believed to be the home of the main suspect, French media reported, citing police. And they arrested the main suspect in the nearby Bastille area. Shortly afterwards, a man said to be from Algeria was also detained. So it seemed to be a group thing, again, to not be able to kill anyone. And Charlie Hebdo, keep doing what you're doing, guys, marked the start of the trial by reprinting controversial cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad that sparked protests in several Muslim countries. And, of course, they sparked the idea of burning the Quran. And I remember the amazing atheist mentioning this as well, that even if you don't have a physical Quran, then you can download it and burn it onto a compact disc. So you can have a CD and you can set fire to that as well. And just do that because there's safety in numbers, and if you get enough people doing it, then they won't be able to take everybody out. And, of course, they had an organized Quran burning in Texas. And you got an Islamist who wasn't very happy with that. So he came, guns blazing, in order to take out these darned blasphemous infidel Texans, and was, of course, blasted away by the sheer firepower that the Texans had, because they were not going into it unarmed. And that is exactly the kind of situation that is heartwarming, and you hope there will be more of, that people are able to defend themselves, and therefore they do not have harm come to them, instead of the state stripping away people's ability to protect themselves, in which case you have here where they say the defendants in the trial are also accused of helping another jihadist carry out a related attack in which he shot at a policewoman and then attacked a Jewish store, killing 4 people. The 17 victims were killed over a period of 3 days. All 3 attackers were killed by police. The killings marked the beginning of a wave of jihadist attacks across France that left more than 250 people dead. Yes, it's almost as deadly as the Wu flu. But in all seriousness, if this is something that can be stopped and is very straightforward in order to be stopped, then why not stop it? And you might be thinking, well, hey, but the deadliest jihadist attack was actually in America, where they have the Second Amendment. So what stopped it there? And you go, well, you're not allowed weapons on an aircraft, and the Stanley knives that they used simply were not detected by the TSA, or the equivalent at the time, because they failed to do their job. So they disarmed the civilians, and then they left the criminals armed. And the TSA is about 20% effective. Maybe 35% on a good day. Maybe. So, no, they're not actually keeping anybody safe or helping anybody. And it's the same here. So instead of trying to suggest that you could enforce your policies 100% as you hope so, why don't you realise that that isn't possible, and individual freedoms are always the way to go. And that way, and only that way, and I will keep saying it until I sound like an incredibly broken record, is that the only way you will stop these terrorist attacks from happening is by showing these terrorists, these would-be attackers, that it will be fruitless to try, because we are not reliant on the police, but we can actually defend ourselves, and we will take you out if you try any funny business or do anything stupid. But, as always, let me know what you guys think down below. If you think, well, hey, this is just part and parcel of living in a modern city, or if you think, well, no, actually, I would much rather be able to defend myself instead of laying there like a helpless coward, waiting for the good guy with a gun to come over. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.